Hello, dear students. I am Dr.S. Pagar, Associate Professor, Department of Geography. Dear student, I welcome all of you in this online lecture series on behalf of Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samajas, Charity Arts, BH Commerce, and AM Science, popularly known as KTHM College, Nasik. Dear student, in this S.Y.B.Sc class, Geography paper first, that is Environmental Geography, we are discussing our chapter number 3, that is environmental problem. Dear student, today we have a lecture number 22 of this subject, and in this lecture we are going to discuss a very important subtopic of our third chapter. That is, the name of the topic is effects of loss of biodiversity. Dear student, in previous lecture, we have already discussed detailed information about loss of biodiversity, especially what are the reasons that are responsible for loss of biodiversity at particular global level. And for today's lecture, we have very simple objective, that is to discuss the effects of loss of biodiversity. That is very important topic that we are going to discuss today. Dear student, you know that biodiversity is the natural biological capital of the earth. The biodiversity provides us a valuable natural resources to satisfy the need of human being. It may be related to the food, shelter, or clothing. And at every time we require the biodiversity. It also provides the valuable natural resources for mankind, means for the human being. The biodiversity loss is a big threat to human being as a global level. Dear student, in last lecture we have already discussed what are the reasons of loss of biodiversity. So let us discuss effects of loss of biodiversity that we observe throughout the world. The first effect related to the ecological effect. Dear student, you know that the role of biodiversity in keeping the equilibrium among the ecosystem and among the various environmental factors is very important. It is necessary to keep the level of biodiversity high for the environmental equilibrium and also to keep the ideal balance of the ecosystem. But when the biodiversity loss, there is a threat to structure and the proper function of the ecosystem. When there is a loss in the biodiversity that directly affect on the function of the ecosystem, decline biodiversity, lower an ecosystem productivity, and the lower in the quality of the ecosystem services. It disturbs the food chain and the food web also. Therefore, it is very important to keep the biodiversity high at particular place. But if there is a great loss in biodiversity that directly affect on the function of the ecosystem, so therefore this is the first effect that we observe at various part of the world where ecological system or the ecological balance is totally disturbed due to the loss of biodiversity. Second effect is the local may also raise the cattle in order to survive. In world there are a lot of places where the cattle is a very important occupation. The cattle for raise the cattle or the animal husbandry is a very important occupation. But in this place, if there is a loss in the biodiversity, then it directly affect on this process. However, loss in biodiversity leads to decrease in the biomass of the feed. That is very important thing. This is the main reason, and that is the negative effect of the loss of biodiversity. We observe decrease in the biomass of the feed, and yes, the farmer will no longer to be able to raise enough cattle due to the due to the feed of shortage or the feed shortage. Therefore, this is directly effect we observe where the loss of biodiversity is great, the directly affect on the supply of the feed, and therefore it directly affected the raised cattle in that particular area. Then third very important effect we observe of loss of biodiversity, that is loss of our recreational space. Yes, you know that student, the biodiversity add beauty to the life of the people in the region, and you know that in the tourism industry, or you can say in the tourism process. What is tourism? Tourism is nothing but journey for the fun, journey for the enjoyment, and in this tourism, yes, the recreational is very important. It play very important roles. But we can also lose our recreational space as an effect of the loss of biodiversity. Many people are stressed by their regular work, daily work, and sometimes they need a space to relax. And yes, this is very important. The recreation, the lot of places in the world we have this type of the what the potential to provide a good opportunity to people to go there and enjoy the beauty of that nature. But if the good biodiversity here, biodiversity is available, then it is work well. But if the biodiversity of that particular place is lost or the decline, then definitely directly affect on the recreational space. And yes, it is very important that the forest surrounded by the plants and animal may be a good area for the people to enjoy or the for the various recreational activity. But loss of biodiversity may create the loss in this regard, that the lot of places are now not too much suitable for this purpose. So the main reason is loss in the biodiversity of that particular region. So therefore, this is also an important effect you observe. It is a negative effect of the loss of biodiversity, where a lot of the places that were beautiful, that was have potential for the recreational activity for the people during the tourism um, process, but unfortunately, due to the continual deforestation and the other human activity, disturb the biodiversity of that places, and now these places are not too much suitable or not able to attract the people with this regard. So therefore, this is also important negative effect we observe of biodiversity. Then next one is that economic effect. Yes, you know that the most of the human activity or the human economic activity are directly or indirectly depend on the forest and the plants and what you can say in the animals. But when there is a loss in biodiversity, that also cause the adverse economic effect. Let us see the one example. For example, if we lost the bees, you know that bees are very useful to increase the production in the natural process, and it help to increase the production of the crops. But if we lost the bees, we found to suffer from a serious decline in the crop yields, which would be lead to the GDP to collapse. That is very important. The whole economy is disturbed or the collapse due to the failure in the crop production. So would be lead and the increase in the famine also, such that the famine condition can be arise due to this process. Therefore, and you know that student, the when there is a great loss in the biodiversity that directly or indirectly affect on various occupation, and you know that when we get the good production, good income from this process, then it directly help to increase or maintain the GDP average of the country. But if there is a there is a failure in the crops or maybe in the production, that time, yes, our GDP income is also going to decrease. And therefore, there's a direct connection between the loss of biodiversity that are related to that are directly affect on the human occupation or the people's income. Therefore, this is a very important side effect, negative effect we observe due to the loss of biodiversity. The next one is very important, that is human health. Yes, student, this is very important. Why? Because you know that our health is totally depend on the ecological balance or the environmental balance. So human health depends massively upon the ecosystem products and the output, such as availability of the food, water, and fuel sources. And you know that traditionally the forest and the numbers of the animals are good source for the medicine, and we are using since a long period. But yes, there are a lot of places that are disturbed due to the human activity. There is a continuous loss in biodiversity, and whatever we have a good source of the traditional medicine or even the nowadays also for the farmer, for the many medicine for preparing or the making the many medicine, we are using the some part of the forest and even the some byproduct of the animals. But when there is a loss in the biodiversity, that time we are not able to get the what you can say the the required source or the required raw material from the forest and from the plants or maybe the from animal. Therefore, there is a direct effect on the human being and human health, because we don't have the good quality of the foods, good qualities of the forest raw material, and even the byproduct of the animal that we are not able to get from the forest or from the various sources. Due to there is a loss in biodiversity, the quality of these things are totally decreasing day by day, and is directly affect on the human health. So therefore, this is also very important effect we observe, or it may be the, you can say that it is a result of the loss in biodiversity. Then next one is the spreading diseases. Yes, this is also very important, that related to the health. See, the removing the species from the food chain can create this serious trouble. You know that there is a coordination between the various factors that are participant or that are involved in the ecosystem. It started from the producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and so on up to the decomposer. But if in this food chain, or it may be the food chain, or it may be the food web, if any one factor is disturbed due to the loss of biodiversity, then it totally process is disturbed. The total process is affected in this process. See, for example, lion is the important the consumer in the ecosystem. If he kills a deer, he will eat some part of the deer's body, and remaining parts will be eaten by the other animal. But what's happened if the other animal is not available to consume the rest part of the deer? It may be waste, and in this waste process, several kind of diseases can be developed. See student, this is very important thing. This example indicate that if there is the happen such type of the condition is arise due to the loss of biodiversity, then definitely the whole process will be disturbed. And one thing is there, when the remaining waste part is remain in that particular place and no other animal to eat available for eat it, then what will happen? That waste create the trouble, that this waste may be the cause for the various kinds of the diseases. It may be that disease can be spread, can be affect to the local animal or even the human being also. Therefore, spread in diseases is a very important negative effect of loss of biodiversity that we observe at various parts of the world. The next one is very important, that is effect on the food production. Yes, a loss in the biodiversity can have a vast or the adverse effect on our foods production, which is depend on the forest and some animal. And due to the loss of biodiversity, it will affect to some extent. You know that student, the most of the Indian food is come from the different species of the plants. You know that, and without plants, we are not going to survive. But if due to the loss of biodiversity, that all the sources of the foods is affected, and if they are, and sometimes they decline on a large scale, we are not able to get these sources for fulfill our needs. Therefore, the effect of this biodiversity we observe on the food production. And it is very important to us that try to maintain the good or the rich biodiversity at every years. And if we are able to do this, then definitely we can able to get required food from the forest and the animals also. But unfortunately, it's not working properly at the international level, at the global level. There is a continuous loss in biodiversity. Therefore, this is also very important, because I just say that the most of the our sources is food sources is totally depend on the forest and agriculture and some byproduct of the animal. If all these things are degraded, or you can decline or affected due to the loss of biodiversity, then definitely it directly affect on our life, and therefore this is also very important thing. Last one is very important, that loss of biodiversity can also affect the livelihood of people, because many people depend on the forest and animal for their livelihood. This is also very important. If we observe the various economical activity of a human being, then you will observe that the most of the maximum economic activity of the human being is directly or indirectly depend on the forest. depend on the what you can say the animals or plants or various part of the biotic community. But if these biotic communities are affected, there is a loss in their diversity, or we can say the loss in the biodiversity that directly affect on the human occupation, the human various human economical activity. And yes, I'm talking about the mostly underdeveloped countries and developed countries. They have the main source for their economic activity is forest, is animals, and therefore, if the forest, the diversity of the forest, diversity of the plants or the animal is affected, or it can say it increase, loss of the biodiversity is increased, then definitely directly we observe their side effect, their negative effect on the human economic activity. Means there is a this process is affected the livelihood of the people. Mostly I'm talking of the tribal people. They are mostly the tribal people are directly depend on their livelihood on the forest, on the animals. Therefore, if there is a in that reason, if there is a great loss in the biodiversity, that directly affect on the people, the livelihood of that tribal people. So this was about the today's lecture. That was the effect of the or the effect of the loss of biodiversity at the global level. Dear student, in next lecture we are going to discuss very important subtopic, that is how to conserve biodiversity. What are the major that are solution can we apply to maintain the good, rich or the high level biodiversity at the global level at everywhere? Then for that purpose, what to do by human being? It may be as individual level, or maybe the government level, or the as a society level. So that we are going to discuss in next lecture. So thank you.